Just continue eating. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speaker, Mr. Phil Keating. Phil has extensive experience in renewable energy project development, including specific experience in the sugar industry and bagasse pellet plant development and operations. Philip is currently the CEO of Delta Biofuels LLC, a bagasse pellet manufacturer which has completed construction of a production plant in Jeanerette, Louisiana. Phil.
Thank you very much. Can you all hear me? Yeah. Thank you. My name is Phil Keating, CEO of Delta Biofuel. I appreciate the ability to come and tell you all about what we're doing and where we are, the status of our project, and what we hope to achieve. I have a really brief set of slides. In my experience, this has generally been really interactive. A lot of people have seen the plant going up, drive by it, see it from Route 90, and really happy to get into questions. That seems to be one of the kind of most productive sessions. So the quick background, we started this project in 2019. Our team has been working on solutions in the bagasse industry, if you will, for the sugar industry for quite a while on various different types of potential uses for bagasse, and there have been many projects over the years, as you all probably know. In the end, what we're doing is we're taking the bagasse from the sugar mills, prepping it, washing it, drying it, pressing it into a pellet, and that pellet is a fuel pellet. It is exactly the same as a wood pellet that you've probably used in a stove or for something else or for smoking, and it has very similar BTU content. And right now there is a large industry in the power generation fuel supply for utilities around the world to make electricity with wood pellets and other biofuels. But it's taking these generation facilities have switched from coal and are using biomass to make power, and there's right 30 or 40 million tons a year of pellets being burned in power generation right now. So what we did is we took that model and applied it to the sugar industry, worked with the sugar mills to figure out a way to take the material and process it into a fuel that would be acceptable for these customers. And what we did there is we were then able to prove that we could do it on a smaller scale, and then we're able to sell on a long-term basis to the power utilities, in our case in Europe. They've been doing it there. It's an established market. And once we were able to get a long-term contract on the sales side, we then came back to the sugar mills and talked about long-term arrangements to match those and get a financing and investment package together and build the plant. So where we are right now is we partnered with the Enterprise Sugar Mill owned by the Patu Group, along with 4 other sugar mills on the west side of the Atchafalaya Basin. And so you can see, oh, actually, let me get this a little bigger. Well, it's not great, but you can see on the left side is the sugar production area for about half the industry in Louisiana. Our plant is located centrally in that area, where we have an average distance of about 12 to 13 miles in terms of trucking. And so we have long-term agreements with 5 sugar mills over on this side. And with that, we sized a production facility to take 100% of the annual bagasse from these sugar mills and process it into the pellets that we're talking about. I'm happy to report that we've completed construction, and we're literally in startup stage as we speak. We're probably 3 months behind what we had hoped. We're pretty close to budget, but if you put all that stuff together, that's actually not a bad outcome. And I've got a lot of pressure since I have the sugar guys here. I think we'll be making pellets in about 4 days. So I think, so knock on wood, we're super close. And what we're doing with those pellets logistically, we're as much a logistic operation as we are a manufacturing facility. We have a very significant trucking operation bringing in bagasse from the other 4 sugar mills. We take direct from conveyor from the Enterprise mill in Jeanerette, and then we truck our pellets from the plant to our port facility, which is at the Impala Burnside facility, which is about a 90-mile run. We just constructed a dome there, which if you ever drive in that area, you'll notice. Very similar to the domes that you see off the I-10 bridge, which is in fact a wood pellet storage facility. And then they get shipped by a large bulk carrier over to Europe for us. This is a little bit more about the logistics, which, for this parish and the neighboring parishes, we go back and forth and cross in and out. But that partnership with the sugar mills is obviously enormous. And we really focused on trying to solve the problem as far as the bagasse accumulation and the large piles that have grown over time, which we will also work on taking. We can mix that older material in with the fresh bagasse, so we actually think that we'll end up reducing those piles to about 10% of what they are now, which will be really great. This is just the sugar industry, also really attractive from our perspective and our customers' perspective, because it's been a very, as crops go, very, very consistent, growing supply over the years. So this is a 40-year chart, and so that was also very attractive and important. I don't know if you'll be able to see. You won't be able to see this very well. This is the plant a few months ago, but it labeled each area. And maybe I do 2 things. This will be even worse. There is a process chart that just generally shows what we do, and I'll just tell you very quickly. As I mentioned, we take bagasse directly in. It's an agricultural residue, so one of the biggest challenges with it is it has soil in it, which results in ash, which is really not good for our end customers. So we have to process that. We have a washing process that we've developed and built. And then once it's washed, we take it into a drying process, which is a large rotary drum dryers that are fired from bagasse as a fuel in the burners. And then that goes into particle sizing with large hammer mills, and then ultimately into a pellet press. The pellet press is, actually comes from the feed press world, actually. And then they develop those into wood pellet presses, and then we adopt it from there. So it's a fairly simple process, but when you're building it at scale to deal with this kind of material, it's actually quite a challenge. We're very happy to be where we are. The other thing that I wanted to just so you can get a sense of kind of the almost finished plant as of the date of this video. Just did a little flyby, and this is me flying the drone, so I apologize. But to the left is the washing area, that whole complex under the high roof. That material goes into those green bins, which is surge bins that are for the drying area, which is on the top right. And when this flies around, you'll see what that looks like from the other side. That's Route 90 in the back. The building here is our pelletizing building. There are 6 large pelletizers that are in there. The tall silo here is the finished product. In the foreground are bag houses and the hammer mills and cyclones. And this is the pollution control on the backside here of the dryers, and you can see we have 2 dual drum dryers that are rotating and drying the material. You can see the sugar mill in the far distance and the conveyor on the right side of the screen that goes all the way back to the enterprise mill where the bagasse comes out of the sugar mill. So I think what I was hoping to do is just give you an overview. We're super excited. We think we're going to have a really big impact on the industry over time. The ultimate goal is to work with the sugar mills and with the farmers to ultimately try to help make the process even more efficient, which wasn't a goal in the past because no one wants more bagasse, but we do. And so we are going to work on a lot of initiatives with the sugar industry in that respect. The other thing that we'll seek to do longer term is to actually work on getting material out of the fields. All of the field burning that you see is necessary right now to clear the fields, and there's no other economic way to do that. And so one of our goals is to engage into that area and work with the industry to take advantage of that and reduce the field burning. So what I'd like to do is just stop there and entertain questions. Like I said, my experience in the past is there are a lot of questions out there typically, but what I can tell you is that we're up and we are literally starting to run. So we passed some huge milestones, and look forward to working with the industry going forward, and really happy to be here in South Louisiana.
Two questions for you. What's the competing uses for the bagasse today? And number 2, what's the approximate value per MMBTU of the finished product?
Well, for the first question, there are so many theoretical competitors to or alternative uses, but in terms of getting something done in a way that you can put a facility together at scale to really take care of the problem, there are no success stories. I mean, there really isn't one. So there's lots of people thinking about it. I've been involved in this for over 10 years, really, looking at different things. In the end, we found the best thing to do was a simple product. Even that simple product is involved, hundreds of millions of dollars of construction and engineering and everything else. And it was hard. And so all these next generation ideas and incredibly, new science and everything else, it's hard to, I think it's hard to make a project that way, and that's kind of proved true. So there isn't really a ready-made secondary use or that can deal with the scale that we're dealing with. On the BTU basis, we're selling to the utilities at, well, it depends on the utility you're selling to, but in Europe, combination of coal pricing and carbon pricing, we're economic. So we're in the U.S., the United States went from coal to gas, which was a big improvement on the greenhouse gas side. So that's where the U.S. advancement on reducing emissions comes in, and gas is cheap. And so we don't compete with that. That's why we're not selling a lot. We're not selling any of this in the United States at the moment. However, for the coal-fired stations that are not on the gas lines, that is an opportunity. But the economics are. We're very lucky here. We have very cheap energy. So it has to be special case. We're more expensive than that.
size of the pellet?
Depending on the die we use, they're either 6 millimeter or 8 millimeter diameter.
You know, I'm not European. What's that in inches?
It's about a ½ inch to 3/4 of an inch diameter to about, 1 to 2 inches long.
What's your most efficient transportation?
Well, transportation-wise, we're not happy we're using trucking. And I think this is a great crowd to sometime talk about how we barge it. But I think in bulk, for our purposes, getting it to the port, to a deep water port, so we can fill up a Handymax-sized bulk carrier is the most efficient. That said, depending on where our customers are, if they can take a seagoing barge or something like that, that's super interesting to us. We'd also love to get out of the trucking business as far as the pellets are concerned, but the bulk carrying is the best.
So is the Potman willing to give you bag ass for free?
It's definitely not free based on all of the costs that go into it, but we have an economic arrangement where everyone's doing well. Yeah, it's a complicated, but yeah.
One last question. If you were to take the amount of bag ass you introduced in the area that you're using it, and take the customer base you have and how well you're doing with the customer base, is there a point of diminishing returns on how much they have available as far as your customer base is concerned?
I mean, how much they can take?
So how much can you produce that, how much do you have available to produce for customers where you don't run out?
So we're not the sole fuel. So they are mixing our material in typically with wood pellets. So to give you an idea, this plant has a nameplate of 340,000 tons of product. And right now that uses up all of the current excess bag gas that's made in half the state. But longer term, working with the sugar mills to either provide steam or work together to have them use less bag gas, we can grow from there, and that's the intention. But our customers are not solely relying on us for our. Maybe that's your question.
Supplement and whatever they.
Yes, and they're attracted to it because it's a much better story than wood. So.
The business years ago that was right next to Sterling, and they were going to build and make pilings. They were going to take the bag gas and infuse it in some type of other chemical, whatever. And they were going to make pilings to replace creosote and naphthalate and all these other pilings.
Yeah.
Have y'all looked at that at all?
No, but there are lots of other, like there was that ceiling tile business that got wiped out in Katrina was working. It clearly wasn't that high margin because they didn't build it again. There's lots of other potential uses, but again it's the scale part, like giving the industry the confidence that the bag gas is going to go away every year is pretty important.
Yeah, well,
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's no way you can use the local ports to try and ship some of it out?
Yeah, I mean, there are. I think when we looked at it in the beginning, it's hard to have those conversations when you're 2 years away from having anything to move. So I think, the trucking, we just defaulted to trucking to get it done. And now that we're getting up and running, we definitely want to re-engage. Because I think there's barging that could be interesting to our existing port. There's barging to, the Caribbean actually has a lot of need for biomass power. They run on diesel and coal, and they're trying to convert to, wood pellets and as well as our pellets. That's a really interesting one from the ports here. So, yeah, we have interest.
So that dome you're talking about that you built on the river, How many tons will that dome hold?
The dome holds about 38,000 tons. And that for our first plant here, that would be, one a month, one ship a month,
And that's a ship. A ship is roughly
30-ish, yeah,
30,000.
30,000 tons. But, we're seeking to expand, we're seeking to expand the plant, we're seeking to build additional plants as well.
So what's the percentage of soil that is in the raw product, the bagasse?
Today, a lot more than
Well,
2 weeks ago.
It's
but-
muddy, right?
Yeah.
But in average.
Yeah, there are 3 scenarios for the amount of dirt that's in the material. One is dry harvesting through the sugar mill, coming out, and that, what we call fresh bagasse, is probably 4 to 8% ash. But then when it's raining like this and the mud's starting to come into the harvest process, it's 8 to 20. And then you have the old bagasse, which build the facility. I mean, you saw the washing area for our plant is substantial, because we had to build for the worst of it. But for normal everyday harvest, we'll have way more capacity for washing than we actually need.
And what are you doing with that salt? Going back into the field?
Well, we'll see how much there is. I mean, there's of the rocks and pebbles that are coming out. We have lots of local ag uses, aggregates that is, and then on the soil, we have to see how much really comes out. Sure.
What's the shelf life on a pellet, and can it get wet after it's manufactured?
Yeah, they can't get wet. So we are shipping them enclosed, storing them enclosed, moving them enclosed. But the shelf life is, I don't even really know. I mean, it's years if it's stored properly.
So they're shipped in bulk ships, not in containers?
Right. Well, for our current, there are smaller industrial users that would like a few thousand tons a year, for example. We would ship in containers, but our primary shipment is for our large customers is bulk carrier. But we will be sending some containers, and in fact, trying to figure out the best way to do that and what equipment to have on our site for that. Sure.
We have to extend the rail with train tracks on for transportation purposes?
Yeah. Again, this is such a great area for logistics, and we're just not using everything. The Enterprise Mill has their molasses tanks going right by our plant, and that ties in to Class 1 railway just a couple miles away. Right now, we're not taking advantage of that. But it was actually a very similar conversation. You go try and talk to a railroad about rates, and that's hard anyway. And then if you tell them it's about rates on a product you haven't made yet in like 2 years, you can't even really have that conversation. But yeah, we would love to figure out how to use the rail.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about the current plant that you showed us up here, and then you talked a little bit about in the future expansions. How much in the current plant that you have in place, how much can that process? Can it process all of the mills, the 5 I think you mentioned, or what capacity is that? And at what point, milestone will you consider expansion?
Yeah. So this facility produces 340,000 tons of pellets, and you can think of it as kind of 2-to-1 yield, if you will. So that's 700,000 tons plus of raw bagasse. That includes water. That's at 50% moisture. That uses all of the 5 sugar mills that we are contracted with at the moment. But through the next stage of our development and working with the sugar mills on efficiencies on the sugar production itself, The sugar mills right now use bagasse for fuel. Up to 80% of the bagasse that's produced is just used for their boilers. And so, which means that there's 4 or 5 times the amount of bagasse that's truly available, just generally. So we have programs to work with the sugar mills to try and get that, some decent portion of that bagasse through efficiencies, which we participate in, right? We work with sugar mills to figure out how to do that. And then on the other side of the basin, there are 6 sugar mills that are in various stages of figuring out what they want to do with the bagasse, and we're obviously talking to them too, but we don't have them under contract.
What y'all do with the byproduct? They have some byproduct.
No, we really don't. We don't have any binder. We don't add anything. We have our water system is recycling and treating the water and with small purge from there. And then the only leftover really is just the dirt, any dirt and rock we take out.
Some soil, you have some soil.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm looking for some soil.
You can have it. You can have it. Call me in 1 month and we'll talk about volumes. We had to. This plant's really overbuilt, and I think it's going to have a lot more capacity than our nameplate. And I don't. We're just going to have to see how much stuff comes out of the bagasse. But we tried to prepare for the worst. Any other questions? Well, again, thank you for having me. It was a real pleasure. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Very good.
Thank you, Phil, for your presentation. Couple business items. We went out last time and requested for people who were interested in being on the board. We had 3 positions available, and 3 people did put up for it. So we've added those 3 people, Caroline McGee, Rivers Pate, and Tracy Scarborough. So let me just say that the members of the board of AIC are Dan Conrad, Tim Call, Gregory Roussel, Billy Hidalgo Jr., Kate Patterson, Michael Wise, Carolyn McGee, Rivers Pate, and Tracy Scarborough. So that'll be the board for 1 year, and as the year progresses, and anybody that has any interest getting on the board, let us know next fall, because there'll be another election then. So thank you very much. And next month, be January 13th, we have Mr. Eric DeLawn. He's a special agent in charge of Homeland Security Investigation located in New Orleans. He'll be here to speak to us. Thank you all very much, and have a safe and good day.